I think if you truly want to be a VC because of the function of what you do, amazing. Like, please, like, do it because it's a great career. But too many people solely want to do it just because they can get super rich off it super quick. And the truth is, you can't. That's not how it works unless you get lucky, which really it's hard to do in this business. Or two, you spend 20 years doing it, make $1 billion off of a company, and you're like, that's actually not that fulfilling. I'm going to do something else. And then you just wasted 20 years.
Hey everyone, this is Prashant and I'll be your host for the VC10X podcast. And today we have Matt Sherman with us. Matt is the founder of Seedscout, a platform that helps founders build their investor networks. In this episode, we talk all about Seedscout, how Matt is building the bank for social capital for startups. Who's more wealthier, venture capitalists or angel investors? What is scouting? And what's Matt's vision for the future of Seedscout? And a lot more. If you haven't subscribed to VC10X yet, please do and make sure to leave a 5-star rating if you find value in this episode. And for any insights you gather in this episode, make sure to share it on social media and we will reshare your post. Without wasting any time, let's dive straight in. Hey Matt, so good to have you here on the VC10X podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
I'm doing very well as well. Where are you speaking from?
I'm here in Tempe, Arizona, and I'm stoked to be on here, by the way. Thank you so much for the invite. I always love talking about Seedscout, and love to do it from anywhere in the world. The beauty of 2022 and the internet.
Absolutely. You can just be anywhere and be creating impact on the entire world. So that's the beauty of these times. And like COVID really brought it to the forefront that, okay, this is a way of working and you can actually do it. It's completely fine. So great.
Totally.
All right.
It enables a lot of opportunity for people in the world, which I think is really exciting.
Absolutely. And I love what you're building. So to kick things off, let's start with your story and how you got to where you are, and then how you started Seedscout and the idea behind it.
Yeah, sure. So I started my career, I guess, in 8th grade as a singer-songwriter. So I learned guitar. I learned kind of how to sing. I started putting up hundreds of videos on YouTube. A few years into this, I started playing shows around Phoenix, Arizona, selling tickets to these shows. I had T-shirts with my name on them, like the whole thing. I was even on Spotify for a bit, and I actually did this all the way up to sophomore year of college. Around sophomore year of college, I kind of had a realization that I was not going to make it in music. Like I'm pretty good at guitar, but my voice is just okay. And I decided that I was gonna, try another entrepreneurial endeavor that wasn't dependent on a little bit of like raw ability. And I think startups are in this category where you can really learn how you learn the craft and make it happen yourself. So in 2014, I discovered Y Combinator's startup school, led by Sam Altman. And I just kind of discovered startups on the internet. And from that point on, I kind of just became pretty much obsessed with startups. I started a company. I was obsessed with the local startup scene. I was obsessed with internet I was just like, I love this concept of startups. And I was only, just like right out of college at this point. I started my first real company in 2017. It was called Publoft. We connected writers to startups that needed their blogs managed. And I actually made some pretty good progress with this. We got to 24K MRR, but a challenge that I noticed while I was doing Publoft is that I was really out of network, right? Like I was over here in Phoenix trying to raise money for this company. We had revenue, right? We got up to 24K MRR, right? That's revenue, but I still wasn't able to raise any money up until that point. And I thought this was, an issue. Why is this like this? So I decided to start a podcast called Forward Thinking Founders. We're going to interview founders before they ultimately get big with the goal of kind of like building my network. I've since interviewed about 800 founders, including the founder of the platform we're on now, Riverside FM. I interviewed him early on. And I ultimately got extremely networked in tech. As I said, 800 interviews later, many of these guests you wouldn't have heard of when they came on, but you've heard of now. Long story short, with that other company, it didn't work out. Due to many reasons, which we don't really have to go into, but it didn't work out. So I left that and got a job at Prenda, which was a Y Combinator-backed company. I was their first growth hire based over here in Phoenix. And then the pandemic hit, right? Mid Prenda, and everything kind of blew up, including Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley, people started to leave to go to Miami. They started to leave to go to other places, the middle of the country, things like that, Arizona. And I saw this opportunity in about, August of 2020, where I was working at Prenda at the time, crazy growth, and they've raised a lot of money since. But I kind of was thinking, like, if I'm going to try to solve this networking problem that I have for myself, and I know other people have, I need to do it right now. So I quit my job at Prenda in August of 2020, which is, we're coming up on 2 years ago, almost to the date, because I quit on August 1st. So I quit my job, started what was then called Forward Thinking City. And that kind of has led to where we are today with Seedscout.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And talking about Seedscout, it solves a very interesting problem that you are making it easier for founders to raise money by leveraging the power of networking in a way, right? Like you did for yourself, you started a podcast, networked with people, and that kind of made things easier for you and got you in touch with a lot of amazing people, right? And now you're trying to help others do that, but for raising capital. So talking more about, like, how does Seedscout function from a founder perspective and from an investor perspective, both of these?
Yeah, sure. So as a founder, you have the option to have a free account where you ultimately sign up. You're able to create your forwardable intro email. You get tools that serve yourself. You can create, monthly updates, things like that. If you want to kind of go into multiplayer mode, which is the only way that it's valuable, to be honest, you have the option to upgrade to Seedscout Pro. And at this point, founders get three different products. They get our venture partner introductions, where we've have about 90 venture partners that have joined Seedscout, who are open and willing to meet with our founders 4 times a month, give them feedback, things like that. So our pro founders get feedback. We also have investor introduction requests, which, as we were talking about before we started this interview, these are self-serve. So a founder can go into the platform, find who they want to intro to, click a button, and it doesn't make an intro, right? It requests an intro. Key difference there. And then thirdly, we have a pretty robust IRL experience network. Starting out here in Phoenix, we have some assets that are pretty incredible for networking, involving suites at arenas, things like that. And I think as we expand to other geographies, which we already have, we'll open up our IRL platform to other geographies as well, specifically LA, SF, New York, and Miami. And maybe sixthly, San Diego. On the investor side, there's 2 ways they can engage with Seedscout. The first way is getting our deal flow. This is free. They sign up, they give us their information about their firm, what they like investing in. And then based on those filters, the founders can then use that information to see if they're a good fit for that founder. So it's kind of completely self-serve in that front. This is called our Seedscout Investor Network. And then the last way an investor can get involved is by becoming a venture partner. Venture partners get equity in Seedscout. That's kind of the incentive. It takes 4 meetings of a trial before we decide that we like each other, right? Because it's a mutual thing. Then after that, we give them some carry, and we ink a long-term relationship. And those are the ways that it works for founders and investors.
Right. So that's from the top view. Like, there are a lot of different moving parts there on both fronts. And my question is that how does this connecting thing works? Because if you're allowing everyone to intro themselves to the VCs, and they're going to just bulk kind of intro, and does that not increase the noise for the investors that so many founders are coming out? Most of them are maybe not even relevant or specific to the kind of investments they make. What about that?
Yeah, totally. Well, so each founder is capped based on their plan that they're signed up for at a certain amount of intro requests per month. It ranges from 25 to 100. So the very, very, very max, paying the highest amount of money, a founder can only request intros to 100 investors in a month, which means they ideally want to be thoughtful about their requests. In addition, I want to make the clarification: you don't press a button and get introduced. It would be overwhelming if we were allowing them to get automatically introduced to investors. what we're actually doing is making it easy for an investor to review a deal. And generally they pass on the deal, right? They generally, like most of the time, right? They're like, this isn't a fit. But going through Seedscout, they actually get a full look at the opportunity versus a cold email where a founder may not put their best foot forward. In addition, it's pretty much an investor's job to review deals. And the way that we have the format within Seedscout, when a deal comes from Seedscout, it looks like any other deal that an investor is reviewing. So it's already in their flow. We have the forwardable intro format where a founder puts together a forwardable intro email and we forward it to the investor. And to be honest, the investor doesn't really know the difference between a Seedscout deal and another deal because we're so naturally kind of built into the system that VCs already work in. Then the last thing I would share is if a VC is getting pounded, let's say we have, I don't know, we don't, but just as an example, like, a Mark Andreessen on the platform. And let's say that everyone's going to him and he's rejecting every single one. We can track that, right? And then we can do something about it, right? We can be like, hey, Mark's actually a second level. And if you want to request an intro to Mark, you need to be at these levels of traction, these levels of a company, and that's how this works. Do we have this in there now? No, but we could build that in pretty easily if that became an issue.
Yeah, that's incredible example of Mark being at the second level investor. Amazing. Besides, can this also cause a relevance issue? Because if the pitches are not relevant, that might be the reason that the investors are actually rejecting, right? And they might be super specific of the kind of investments they want to make. And in the case of investors, they are not making a lot of investments, actually. They're just trying to make a very few investments and really good investments. So in that case, they will actually be rejecting most of the pitches that we send. So will they be degraded on the platform for doing that, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, so you're referring to venture capitalists right now, right? Venture capitalists, you're right. Most of them don't make too many investments, especially the Series A ones. I definitely agree with that. With that said, we have more angel investors on the platform than we do venture capitalists, and these people are much more free flowing with how they invest their capital. But still, your question stands: if someone rejects every deal, does that give them a negative score? Absolutely not. What gives them a negative score is if they just don't reply to anything. If they tell us they want a deal, they sign up for our deal network, and they just never reply to a founder ever. That's not good. It's not ghosting. So we don't punish them, but we don't really increase their Seedscout score. One thing I haven't mentioned, up to this point is we have this concept called the Seedscout score, where every investor gets a score based on how many times they interact with the deals that we send them, or when the founders trigger the intro requests. And we boost a score for passing, right? We boost a score for taking an intro. We boost a score for investing. But we don't do anything if you don't respond. So it's in your best interest to reply, even if it's a pass. And then one last thing I would share on that front is, although right now things are getting tightened up in the markets, we've found that angel investors are still investing. Maybe they're doing it a little slower than they previously were, but at least on our platform, it's kind of business as usual.
Yeah, I would like to understand the difference between the investing strategy of angel investors and VCs, because you are kind of working with both these kind of people. So how do you see the investment strategies differ from angel investors and VCs? And for founders as well, who should they be seeking capital from? Is it angel investors or venture capitalists? What's your opinion?
Sure. So the main structural difference between an angel investor and a venture capitalist is an angel investor is investing their own money, and a venture capitalist is investing someone else's money, and maybe it's their own money too. And because of this, angel investors are able to go more with their gut. They're able to take only their opinion in mind, no one else's opinion. They're able to invest quickly. Generally, these checks are smaller. Generally, they're not considered professionals. Some would, but most are just doing it on the side, right? So those are angel investors. Venture capitalists are different. These people quite literally get paid to manage other people's money. So in my view, I think they actually take a little less risk than an angel would. I think they do act a little slower. I think they're a little more meticulous in due diligence, rightfully so, right? They have a lot at stake, and at the end of the day, it's their job. If they don't do their job right, they just won't raise another fund, and that sucks, right? That's a bad situation to be in, because where do you go after that? So those are the two differences. In relation to which founders should go with, I mean, the very basic framework is that if you haven't raised much money yet, or no money, go with angels. If you already raised a couple $100,000 from angels, try your hand at VC. If you've already raised money in a previous company and you know exactly how it works, you can go straight to VC. But I would say most people on Seedscout are signing up because they're not necessarily a first-time founder, but a first-time fundraiser. And I always think you gotta crawl before you can walk, and you gotta walk before you can run.
Yeah, absolutely. And about the expectations, is it like that angels expect less from the company results, ultimate results, that, okay, this is going to be a 10x exit, 100x exit? Because VCs have really big expectations when they're making an investment. Since angels are more spontaneous in the investment, is there a change in the expectations?
Depends on the angel. My angel, I have about 15 angels. They're all expecting Seedscout to go to the moon because that's what I told them I would do. That's what I told them what my ambition was. So that's what they're expecting. I think every investor, ideally, I take that back. Every Bay Area minded investor, expects the company to go to the moon. With that said, there is a large archetype of investor that is happy with a 3x return, which is totally cool, right? That's still a great return. But I wonder if that is if that should be the case in this asset class. And if you want that kind of return, I wonder if you should go to a different asset class, because I think that's kind of limiting on an ambitious founder. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Got it. And one more question on that front, kind of a weird question. So can we consider that angels are actually richer people in terms of money than VCs?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people think VCs are wealthy, and a lot of them are, right? Like Keith Raboy, very rich, right? Very wealthy. Like probably Mark Andreessen, like very wealthy. These VCs that we've heard of, very wealthy. Jason Calacanis, right? With Uber, very wealthy. But like you notice that these people have been in the game for like quite a long time, and they've actually made their wealth from like another discipline, and then they moved into VC, right? All examples I just mentioned are in that scenario. And VCs, they're almost, if they were truly wealthy, they wouldn't be VCs. They would be LPs. They would be investing in GPs. They'd be fund of funds. But because they like the process of investing capital, they decide to do that. And obviously, I mean, depending on the size of your fund, they're probably doing fine, right? But a lot of the emerging fund managers are not wealthy, and they wouldn't even say they're wealthy. That's like not part of they'll get wealthy if they do their job right. Angels, on the other hand, I mean, no, you can be an angel and write a $1,000 check, and that still counts. But if we're talking about kind of standard angels, standard 25K check size, things like that, yeah, you can't just write a random 25K check here and there and not be wealthy. So I would say, I mean, I don't really have data on this, to be honest, but I will make the assumption that the average angel investor that invests large checks, at least like 25K or more, is definitely far more wealthy than a GP at a first time or second fund.
Yeah, that's a very interesting insight. Amazing. And you mentioned on the Twitter profile of Seedscout that you're helping founders leverage social capital to raise funds. So let's talk about social capital for a bit. What is social capital, and how is Seedscout trying to leverage that and helping founders there?
Yeah, sure. If I told you right now on this podcast, I'm going to preface by saying this is not true. This is just an example, because I don't want to, lead anyone astray. But if I told you at this second, hey, guess what? Like we just raised, a Series B round, from Sequoia, you would immediately mentally do this thing where you're like, oh, like this is that kind of guy. Like he raised a Series B from Sequoia. Cool. Why? Right? It's because Sequoia is known to back the best founders. They are the scariest firm inventor. They are the best firm inventor. And by having them hypothetically on my cap table, I get social capital from them. They are lending me social capital. And I'll give you a real example. My last company was backed by Jason Calacanis. The moment that Jason backed us, we grew in social capital. Jason put the money on the line. It didn't work out, unfortunately, but in that moment, like we got social capital. Of course, it went away as soon as we got it, right? Once the company died, but that's the way social capital works. So what is social capital? It's clout. It's reputation. It's how people think of you. Okay. And, usually social capital is kind of herded around in certain groups. What I like to call the Silicon Valley kind of monoculture has a social capital thing where they all give each other social capital, they spread it around, but they don't really give it to like outsiders, right? If you're an outsider, you're cool, like I'll take a call, but I'm not gonna like give my social capital to you. Because it's not cool. There's no incentive to. If you're a total stranger, why would I do that when I could give it to a buddy? So what Seedscout has done. Your question was what social capital? That's social capital. It is what makes you cool, and more importantly, what makes you perceived as cool. Almost more so than what makes you cool.
Yeah, right. And how is Seedscout trying to leverage this and helping founders with social capital?
So I see Seedscout as a social capital bank. Over the last 3 years, but really over the last 8 years that I've been in tech, I, as an individual, have been building up a fair amount of social capital. And then when I started my podcast, I built up even more social capital. And then when I helped founders raise funding, I didn't ask for a fee in exchange, just did it for free. I got more social capital. And then when I started Seedscout, that social capital was kind of transferred to Seedscout. So at this point, like Seedscout has social capital. An intro request from Seedscout is not exactly the same as a cold email, and it's not even actually the same as an intro request from another firm that isn't as reputable as us, right? So we have this social capital. Now, if we were like a normal VC firm, and no, we're not a firm at all, we're a startup, but if we were like a firm, we would selectively allocate that social capital based on who we perceive deserves it. We'd see who comes into the pipeline. We'd see, we think your company's interesting. Here's $100K and our social capital. The problem with this, and it's very well documented, is that VCs only fund a certain type of founder as a high level. They only fund founders out of this monoculture. Similar backgrounds, similar mindsets. They look a lot like me, right? I've one characteristic of a founder that they like to back white guys, but like I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. So like, I don't check that box, right? So it's been really hard for me to raise too, right? It's a certain type of monoculture. And that social capital is not spread to people that don't fit that monoculture. And if it is, it's in limited supply. So what we're doing is we're like, all right, that sucks, right? Not cool. We're going to start a bank, okay? But not like a bank full of cash. It's a bank full of social capital. And the way we lend your our social capital to you is you spend money, right? We're not free. It costs $250 at the minimum, all the way up to $1,000 a month. But if you become a paid customer, we will then lend our social capital to you, which you can do something with, which ultimately request introductions for. Will that lead to something? We don't know, but we can give you a shot on goal by lending our social capital. And then the thing that makes this interesting is that every time a founder that we lend our social capital to does really well and raises a lot of money, builds a great company, exits, that social capital actually comes back more than what we lent out, and it actually helps out all of Seedscout because we can lend it more. If we help the next Uber raise their seed round, then they raise a $50 billion round or whatever. That's really great for Seedscout and our founders. So in that way, I see us like a social capital bank, and we lend it out to all our paying customers. And all the paying customers are almost a part of how we grow the social capital over time.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And are the intros from Seedscout considered as cold intros or warm intros? Because there's a difference between two.
Yeah, so it is both. I would say if I had to pick one, it would be warm intros. Why? Because these investors on Seedscout has submitted their information onto our platform to get our deals. That's their opt-in. Okay, so when they're getting deals from Seedscout, that's not cold. These investors Seedscout has warmed them up, and these founders are on Seedscout. So I see it as a warm introduction. Now, is it the same as a warm introduction from a good buddy from that VC? No, at least not yet. But what we're trying to do is build systems for meritocracy here. And I think what we've built is 500 times more effective than a cold email. And we're not trying to, change everything on day one. We're just trying to make improvements. And I think I can confidently tell a founder, if you have no network at all, I guarantee you might spend less money by doing everything yourself, but you're going to spend far more time figuring this out than if you just joined Seedscout and, just like made it easy for yourself. Instead of just sending all these cold emails. And then over time, as our social capital grows, we might even be more, just as powerful as a introduction from a friend. And maybe even after that, we might be the best introduction in the whole industry. And I think that's going to end up happening. It might just take a few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. So for talking about founders, you talked about a variety of things that they get for those $250. Can you talk through each of the benefits of getting on the plan, the pro plan? And
yeah, sure. So
go ahead.
So for $250, you get 25 investor intro requests a month and unlimited IRL events. So no limit there. For $500 a month, you get 4 venture partner introductions a month. No, these are guaranteed intros, separate from investor intros. And you get 50 investor requests a month and then unlimited events. And then for $1,000 a month, you get ultimately 8 VP intros, venture partner intros, and 100 investor requests a month and unlimited events. So you really, if you want to expand your network faster, you pay for a higher plan. The events, though, are open, for everybody, because we think that's, the serendipitous part of Seedscout that, almost is better than the virtual introductions, but they're both necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say events, what kind of events are these?
Yeah, sure. So up to this point, we've been doing events that are kind of surrounding experiences and arenas. So, most recently, a few Seedscout Pro founders went to a Machine Gun Kelly concert in Footprint Arena, got to bond. That was fun. We're renting out a suite for a bunch of founders for Kendrick Lamar in a couple of weeks. And you might think, okay, these suites are like cool, but why suites? Why not just happy hours or whatever? But my take is that I hate happy hours. They're so boring. They are so predictable. They're so boring. I'll say it twice, So I was thinking, how can we do IRL events that are actually pretty sick and generate word of mouth and actually make someone want to get out of their other plans to come to our thing? And I think renting out suites, maybe not the worst idea. And so far it's been pretty validating. And yeah, that those are the types of events we do, and that's why we do suites, because it's kind of like, who wants another happy hour? I sure don't, Yeah,
there are definitely plenty of happy hours doing rounds. All right. So about the venture partnerships, are there different tiers to your venture partnerships as well, like there is to a founder onboarded, right?
There's not. There probably will be at some point. I mean, people have different amounts of equity depending on when they join Seedscout. So if you join Seedscout 3 months ago, you have more equity than someone joining today. And someone today is going to have more equity than someone joining in 3 months. But other than that, they're all pretty much treated equally. Although we will have tiers at some point. It's just not top of mind right now.
Interesting. And I learned that Seedscout, what it is right now, is actually a pivot from what it used to be earlier. So can you share about that? What was the earlier version of Seedscout and why did you pivot about that?
Yeah, sure. So the original vision for Seedscout was to build a better filtering tool. And it still is that. And I'll explain how it still is that in a second. But the way that I thought that we could accomplish this is by getting really good data on these founders, like the best data, right? They're just the best data we could possibly get, and then selling it to investors. We tried this for two times, 4 months each time, so 8 months total. And it just turns out that it's not that differentiated from, at least it's not perceived to be that differentiated from the Crunchbases, the Signals, the CB Insights, whatever. And I do think that model still could be great, but it's not about what you have, it's what you can prove, right? So, and we just weren't making enough money. We were making, it wasn't working like we wanted it to. So about 4 months ago, I was like, maybe it was 5 months ago, I was thinking, and I'm like, how can we solve the same problem from the other side? And now what we're doing is the filtering is actually done on the founder side, where the founder, now we have these products where we charge founders to expand their network. And where the filter happens is in the email. We make it really easy for the founder to look good. And then when you stamp the Seedscout credential on top of it, that's the filter. It's just the value is being captured from a different side. In addition, we realized that a lot of the founders that were on Seedscout didn't actually know what they were doing, and there needed to be an educational component, because even though we were selling data to the investors still might think all of the founders didn't know what they were doing, and like they wouldn't be wrong, they wouldn't be wrong. So now we're helping the founders level up, and we're charging for that because we have to make money to build a company.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting. And how do you see the current investment landscape impacting the kind of investments that are being made, or the interest that is there in investments? Since the market is not what it used to be, and a lot of investors are not investing right now, they're taking pauses. So
I think it's great. For 3 years, almost for my entire startup career since I started my first company, the market has been kind of like out of funk. It's been they've been investing too much into things they shouldn't have been. They've been caring too little about revenue, too little about the founder, and too much about pedigree and credentialism. And I think with the current crash, investors that are bad at what they do, which is a lot of them, are realizing, wow, like we're pretty bad at what we do. And I think the investors that are good, there's plenty of them, are like business as usual. I mean, maybe they're investing slower, right? Maybe they have curved back a little bit, but they're still investing, and at least they're still meeting founders. And because of this is great news for founders that aren't what I like to call status-seeking monkeys, or people that are just trying to raise money for clout and actually for social capital. Some people actually raise money just for the social capital. I'm like, you are the worst kind of person because there's people that actually have companies that can help the world, that money could be going to them, but you're just raising for your own clout. You are the worst kind of person, right? But we don't really have to go into that. But like ultimately now, those people can't raise because they like can't build a company. And people like me and all the people in Seedscout, who actually are building companies, actually are going to get the benefit of this recession. And look, are some going to fold because they can't raise? Yes. Are some going to have a harder time because people have less money? Yes. But what I firmly believe that we have way too many founders in the ecosystem right now that shouldn't be founders. And my job is to be the telescope and identify the real ones who are gonna just do it and figure it out and stay alive and help them raise money. Because being a founder is too sexy right now. It needs to be like harder, and it's not hustle porn. It's just the truth. Like this is not supposed to be easy, and it's not. It just has been for a certain group of people for a long time.
Yeah, I totally love that take. This is kind of the great filtration happening, that only the real founders will stand and the rest will perish. Right. Cool. And what's your vision for Seedscout? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, so I see it going horizontal. So for a while, a good amount of people were like, "Oh, Matt, are you going to start a fund? Oh, Matt, like, are you going to compete with AngelLists? Like, are you going to like dominate the startup world?" And, like after being in the startup world for so long, I like no interest in that. I actually think the startup world is a little petty. I think it's a little petty, and I think that the world can be a lot bigger, and Seedscout could be a lot bigger if we kind of broaden our horizons. So I think the vision is once we kind of get a lot of founders on board, investors on board, let's go horizontal. Can we get job seekers on board? Can we get job seekers jobs at startups? Can we get service providers on board? Like we were just talking about the pitch deck thing. We're getting pitch deck designers on board. Can we get hiring managers on board? Can we get artists on board that are seeking agents for their music career? Can we get aspiring actors on board who want to make it in New York? We are not a startup centric platform. We are a platform built to connect human professionals with opportunities that they think they're deserving of, and actually like seeing if that's true. And then I would say the largest vision for me, like the highest level up, is like I want to kill the resume. I think that the resume has hurt the world. I think the resume has done a poor job at representing human talent, and I think there's a better way to get the job done. And I think Seedscout's going to get the job done because it's my vision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that take, and love that you said that, okay, we are going to go horizontal, not vertical. But about that, the name says Seedscout. So it sounds like it's going to be for funding and you want to raise seed. and we are the scouts for it. So are you into scouting programs, plugged into scouting programs that, okay, these deals are going to go through that, and if they get through, we get a commission out of it. So are things working like that, or is there a different way?
Not necessarily. Have you seen do you watch Netflix at all?
Very, very less, actually, not much.
So there's a movie called Hustle, and the movie is about a NBA scout that scouted a rando from a different country to bring him to the NBA, and it worked. Like and he got scouted, and now he's in the NBA. Okay, in Hollywood there's talent scouts. In Nashville there are music scouts. And in Silicon Valley, there are startup scouts. So, and when you think of the concept of scouting, I think, when I think of it, I think of someone that's on the search for something, right? It's someone that's on the search for something, looking for the right opportunity, and then going after it when they find it. So the way that I frame it is, I actually think, eventually, we don't call everyone this now, but I think actually every user is going to be a scout. It's actually, we're kind of going to flip it, where it's not about, we have these scouts that scout founders. It's that the founders scout themselves. It's like the musicians scout themselves. It's the job seekers scout themselves, and they do this by the self-serve introductions, right? They just they don't need anyone else to do what they need to do. It's just they need to borrow some social capital. That's what it takes. That's what they need. But I think every user will be a scout, and the way that Silicon Valley has defined scout is going to be no one's going to remember it in 10 years.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take. That scouting is not limited to this investment. It's a broad concept, and you're going to expand throughout and in the scouting business, whether it comes to talent hiring and different kinds of things, right?
Amazing. And I just want to reiterate that because it's a point that I think a lot of the younger or earlier stage founders need to hear. And it's not I'm a late stage founder, right? But I have been around for a little bit. I do a lot of people are Matt, there's so much money you can make by doing the commission thing, by doing deals, by getting carry. I'm what's the point? What's the point? Yes, could I get super rich if I was to do that? Absolutely. But do I want to sit on my yacht with all I do is make money from other people's money, and I just that's my life? I make money when someone else makes money. No, it sounds pretty unappealing. What sounds much more appealing is actually solving actual problems. And although maybe I could short circuit my wealth creation, career if I wanted to stay in startups, I just think it's an overrated career path. And I think if you truly want to be a VC because of the function of what you do, amazing. Please do it because it's a great career. But too many people solely want to do it just because they can get super rich off it super quick. And the truth is you can't. That's not how it works unless you get lucky. Which really it's hard to do in this business. Or two, you spend 20 years doing it, make $1 billion off of a company, and you're that's actually not that fulfilling. I'm gonna do something else, and then you just wasted 20 years. So I just want to make that point. It's do what makes you what makes you excited, not what the world thinks you should do. And I've learned that over the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. But in your case, you are actually doing what actually drives you. And you can also simultaneously, if you plug to these scout programs, maybe even make more money while doing what you're already doing, right?
That's exactly right. That's the thing that people don't really understand. They're oh, why don't you get equity in all these companies? No, I have equity in one company. It's called Seedscout. You know what I mean? This is the asset. And I just think that a lot, the perception is that it's unclear how people see Seedscout could become a big company. So you may as well get equity in other companies. And I'm I'm sorry, that's not how the founder of Seedscout feels, It's why would I think like that?
All right. I love that. Okay. So it was really fun talking to you in this podcast. I tried to cover all different aspects of Seedscout, and it's very interesting what you're trying to build at Seedscout, both for investors and founders. So if you're a founder listening, definitely go to Seedscout, sign up, see what's there. It's definitely something interesting that Matt and team are building there. And if you're an investor, go sign up to Seedscout because there are some interesting deals coming through that platform. All right, Matt, it was great talking to you. And where can founders or maybe investors reach you and sign up to the platform? And the other thing is, where can people follow you to follow the updates on what you're building?
Sure. So they can find Seedscout at seedscout.com. It's pretty clear where the founder section is and the investor section is. And then you can find me on Twitter. I'm Matt with 1T _ Sherman. And then if you're curious to hear my longer form thoughts on other topics, I've written over 100 newsletters and blog posts on our blog, which you can find at words.seedscout.com.
I will put all those links in the show notes below so that people can reach there easily. It was great talking to you, Matt. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Have a great day as well.
My pleasure.